So far, we've only heard from Clemson and FSU when it comes to conference realignment. Well, now we have more from multiple schools in the ACC when it comes to this topic.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Locked On Clemson podcast. I am your host, John Bivens. You can find us over on Twitter or X at I am John Bivens. We are a credentialed media member for Clemson with baseball, basketball, and football. Thanks for making Locked On Clemson your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast at and over on YouTube. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Thanks for making Clemson your first listen. Make sure you join one of the other 200 shows, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, that is available for your second listen every day. Start with Clemson, then move to something else. I'm a big Locked On ACC fan and Locked On Padres, covering the San Diego Padres. So find your team, whatever team it is outside Clemson, and go listen to that for your second listen. But here on Locked On Clemson, we are three things. We're all sports, all passion, all of the time, where we're bringing you everything you need to know regarding Clemson sports. Today is July 22nd. Hope you had a great weekend. On today's show, we're going to talk about our update on conference realignment, give a recap of our class of 25 with a big signing this weekend, and we're going to talk about our offensive line and Coach Luke's thoughts on the topic. We are appreciative for all of our sponsors that make this show possible. Without them, we wouldn't be able to have a Locked On Clemson podcast. But we hope you had a great weekend. We had a relaxing one. We got a little girl on the way, so we just got ready to nursery, started working on some stuff like that. Hopefully you were able to get some relax and rest this weekend. But diving in, we're back to a new week. We're going to have an episode every day this week, as we're back to everyday episodes on the regular. And we want to bring you an update on conference realignment. We've talked about it a little bit, and going forward for the foreseeable future, we're going to talk about conference realignment at least once a week. Just talk about what's happening, what's the latest updates with the court cases, where do we predict things, kind of feel the water on each week on the topic. And so far we've heard from Clemson and FSU. And we have a little bit of update on them, but 24/7 has recently put out an article that updated a lot on multiple schools. So we're going to go through all the schools that we have somewhat of an update from credible sources about where they are with the conference realignment, if they're looking for somewhere, if they would be receptive with a conference, and all that. So we're going to start off with our, at most Clemson fans' closets team that they kind of wish some success for, which hasn't came recently, but Virginia. According to Jackie Francois, I'm thinking I'm saying that name, but he's from Wahoo's 24/7. Everything there is that the Big 12 hasn't been mentioned at all when it comes to Virginia and the conference realignment. Obviously, the ACC is possibly in major trouble, right? Possibly the ACC could be no more in the near future, another Pac-12 situation, depending on how these court cases go and if the other three big conferences want these new schools, maybe a couple independents. But with that, because of that, multiple ACC schools are being questioned, are being considered on whether or not they'll move, whether or not they'll stay. In Virginia, when it comes to them, they really don't seem to have a lot of options. There's not a lot of people looking for them. It seems maybe they're a package deal with Virginia Tech later on. Some people say that Virginia could be ahead of Miami when it comes to conference realignment due to their basketball success, due to a little bit more long-term. Obviously, Miami's got the history when it comes to football, but when it comes down to metrics that aren't as enticing to fans, apparently Virginia has a little bit more pull, maybe their region, maybe their traditions, maybe the money in their markets, that kind of atmosphere. So Virginia right now, no big steps, no big this is where they're going, but maybe a little tie deal with Virginia to Virginia Tech, a little package deal with them. NC State, this is an interesting one. NC State has been one of those teams that some people are like, oh, they're part of the first group going out. Other people are like, no, they're a little bit more behind the scenes. But so far what we've seen from them is that there really haven't been any huge parts. A lot of people are saying that wherever NC State lands is not going to be up to NC State. It's going to be more of, well, this is your only option. And it's because, one, NC State's enticing. Obviously, they have the huge sports media market of the tri-state area, the tri-city area, the Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area over in Raleigh, in eastern North Carolina, or Middle Eastern North Carolina. But it seems like Tar Heels are more of a preferred choice there, more of an opportunity for them to grow with just more success in multiple sports there. I say that, but long-term success, more of a prominent university than the Wolfpack. So it doesn't seem like it'll seem more that they'll be, if the ACC dies or if it starts to die, they'll go with whoever will take them. It seems like that's going to be where NC State's at. Miami, right now, it feels like Miami isn't even focused on this. Whenever you're talking about Miami, and this is according to the Inside the U's David Lake, who is a huge Miami insider. According to him, Miami's not worried about conference realignment. They're not worried about who's going where, what's going to happen. They're more focused in on this season. Well, they've had a couple seasons where they almost had it, but nothing real success, nothing to prove for the growth they've had over the couple of years. So now they're like, let's just win this season. If we have a big season, win the ACC, make it to the tournament or make it to the playoffs. If we can do that, maybe we're a little bit more enticing to a bigger conference. Maybe we're a little bit more like, hey, the Big 12, take it serious. So that's where they're at right now. Other places that aren't Miami insiders are more saying, no, they're a package deal with Clemson and FSU. Those three will go together. They're part of the Big Three with them. Miami's up in the air. Not really sure what's going on. A lot of people are saying Miami's like Clemson FSU. I would say they're more like a Chapel Hill, more like the Tar Heels, and we'll get to them in a second. But then obviously Clemson, Florida State, we will come back to. So now Tar Heels, like we said, it seems like they're more of a what's going to happen. They're not in the court cases, but it's been filed that like when it come down to voting the additional members, they were one of the universities that voted with Clemson and FSU against that. They're one of the universities that seem upset with the ACC, but they haven't took any action steps as of now. With obviously a very historic university, especially when it comes to college basketball. They have Mack Brown, one of the most famous college football coaches of all time, one of the most successful. With all that, it seems like they'd be very much an enticing choice for different conferences, like a Big Ten. Their academics maybe feels like a Big Ten vibe. So it seems like they're waiting to see what's going to happen with Clemson, FSU, and then they'll see what's going to happen. Then they'll see where they can go then. My personal opinion, I think UNC is in this wait-and-see mode, and which 24/7 on their article, which we're reading most of this, or we're getting a lot of this information. I would say Miami is with Tar Heels here. I'd say Miami's kind of seeing with the Chapel Hill. Let's see what happens. Let's not be the first ones. Let's not ruffle into waters yet when we don't know what the options are. But if Clemson and FSU can get out of this in the way that Clemson and FSU want, then we'll see what our options are. And I really feel like Chapel Hill, the Tar Heels would have a lot of suitors. They would have a couple of conferences that'd be willing for them. One, for the market in Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, like we talked about. Two, because of their history. And three, just it seems like they're a very popular university. You know, the first Jordan school. They've got a lot of level. Big Ten, SEC, I could definitely see one of them being willing to take on Chapel Hill, mainly for other sports and their reach to the marketplaces and all the behind-the-scenes jargon that fans don't really jump into a lot, not necessarily success on the field. So that's where they are. Going back to Florida State, everything I'm hearing from Florida State, including Chris Nee, who's the representative for Noles 24/7, it seems like FSU does not want anything to do with the Big 12. Anytime people deep inside FSU are asked about Big 12 involvement, they shut it down quick. That's not where their eyes are. That's not what they want. They don't want that at all. It seems like they would much rather SEC, Big 10. But neither the Big Ten or SEC have said anything or done anything that would make it seem like they would welcome FSU into their conference. So FSU's going through this huge battle with the ACC, but it might not have a landing spot. I think Big 12 would take them, but according to a couple reports we've seen, going to the Big 12 would be their third option between SEC, Big 10, staying in the ACC, or then Big 12. So a couple of reports I've seen might even said FSU might be looking, investigating in what it would be like to be independent like Notre Dame, if that'd be feasible for them. So couple different options there. I think Florida State, I think they're going to end up in the Big 12 if they leave the ACC. I don't think they're staying in the ACC unless they lose this court case, but could be interesting there to see what happens there. And then last but not least, of course, your Clemson Tigers, what we're all here for. Right now, it seems like the Big 12 is going to be the option here. It's definitely not slowing down. Contract realignment, all this kind of thing, it's happening, right? The court case is going strong. News is happening every day. Media day is going on tomorrow or today and this week, and we're going to be there for it. So we're excited about all that. But Clemson has made it known they want out of the ACC. They want to leave the ACC. They don't want to stay. They're spending all the time, the effort, the money in the court case. So now if they can win the court cases, they're going to leave, and it's still up in the air as where they're going to land. Big SEC commissioner was asked in their media week, how do you feel about all this? And he said, I'm not focused on it. I'm focused on our 16 teams. The Big Ten has not really made a lot of comments. Big Ten is known for wanting their schools to be AAU certified, and only one or two schools in the Big Ten are not. I believe Nebraska is not, but the rest of them are, and Clemson is not, so that might make it hard for the Big Ten to get in. Clemson's option, it seems like Big 12 is going to be where it's at, which could be interesting, could be different, a different kind of environment, different kind of teams they're competing with every level. So that could be really interesting. Right now, there's no breaking news, but it's all about the Declaration of Rights they're fighting against, the unforeseeable of exorbitant withdrawal penalty that they're trying to fight, that huge penalty fee they'd have to pay to leave, and also if they're going to be able to keep all their rights, all their financials, responsibilities, instead of the ACC keeping them if they leave the conference. So when those three things get settled, when those three aspects get settled and there's an agreement on those, when that happens, that's when Clemson will really have some heated up discussions with other conferences about joining. So that's the update on most of the schools that are involved in the ACC and conference realignment. We will keep you up-to-date with all of that as news breaks and as we hear more. So we'll let you know we'll keep following that for sure. It's exciting. It's definitely a unique time to be a fan of college football, of college sports, and this is one that we might not see again for a long time. So I'm excited about it, excited to see what happens. Hopefully it works out best for Clemson, but we'll have to see. In a minute, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to dive in on the field. We had a big recruit land this past Saturday. What's that mean for updated class of 2025? We'll talk about that and more in just a second.
This episode of Locked On Clemson is brought to you by FanDuel. Guess what, guys? I love sports. I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. Whew, man, FanDuel has got you covered. FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app, dream up some bets anytime I'm in the mood. I'm telling you guys, it's at your leisure. You can be laying on the couch, twinkling your little toes, and you say, you know what? I want to drop a bet in this bad boy right now. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. Yes, every single day. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel is the official sportsbook betting partner of Major League Baseball.
Welcome back to the Locked On Clemson podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. Clemson's class of 2025 will go down as one of the best classes they've pulled in. It will go down of having some of the most prominent NFL players later down the road. It will come down to a class that makes the most presence and the most impact from day one all the way through their 4 years for those that stay the long time. This class is going to be huge for Clemson, and here's why. The first thing we're going to talk about, Bryson Davis, the defensive line that this past Saturday on the 20th, he signed and committed to Clemson University. He's 6'3", 245 pounds. He chose Clemson over Georgia, Duke, and South Carolina. According to a couple of resources, he's ranked top 75. A lot of people put him in that top 59 spot, number 8th of his defensive line class. He's a monster. He's huge. He's physical. He's athletic. He's versatile. So him choosing Clemson is massive, and he's a big addition to this class. This class is one that started off, when it first started happening, recruits started landing, Clemson jumped out, and this class of 25 was like top 3, top 5 in the nation, depending on sources. It then drastically slowed down. It then definitely hit a huge roadblock or something, and just it started falling in the rankings. It fell all the way to almost 20, and then now that Bryce Davis is signed, it is back up. It's averaging about the 10th, 11th best class in the nation. On3 has him at number 6, Rivals has him at 15, and then 24/7 has him at number 11. But this class is going to be massive. This class will go down as one of the best, and here's why. Just look at their top 4 recruits. We got 4 defensive line or edge position players that are coming in that, according to 24/7, are all top 64 players. We got Amari Adams, we have Isaiah Campbell, Ari Watford, and Bryce Davis, who is 35, 37, 55th, and 64th in the nation recruits. This defensive line is proven why Dabo is saying Clemson is defensive line university. These players are massive. They've all got size. They've all got speed. They've all got strength. They've all got that something special about them that proves they're going to make an impact day one. Look, the defensive line room at Clemson, we've talked about it before. It's a little crowded. Like, there's a lot of good players there. There's younger players. There's a little bit of area there where it's like, where are they going to fit in? I mean, right now this year we've got TJ Parker, who's only a sophomore. Might go pro, but he's only a sophomore. We've got Peter Woods, again, might go pro, but only a sophomore. We've got 2 other seniors starting, but then we got AJ Hoffler. We've got Cade Dinoff. We've got Vic Burley, Caden Story. We've got so many young players that are talented, and now we've got 4 more top 64. But these 4 coming in, they're going to be ones that I see the field regularly their first year. So on the defensive line spot, we're great. We've got great players. But then you move on, not only them, but we then have 2 more players that are also top 100 players, defensive players. You've got Grayson Littleton. You've got Tay Harris, a cornerback and a safety, who are both a 71st overall, then the 87th overall, 7th and 9th at their respective positions. We've got 6 defensive players in the top 87 recruits in the nation. 6 of them. This class is going to keep making our defense one of the best in the nation. It's turning into where, even though we've had a couple down years, 21 to 23, especially offensive side, our defense has been stout for years and years, and that's not declining. This class of 25 is going to help keep that happening, help keep bringing that up. So our first 6 recruits, our best 6 recruits, were defense. The next 8 are on the offensive side, and while only 2 of them are 4 stars or better, the other 6 of them are 3 stars. They're still really good. You've got an offensive tackle, Braden Jacobs. He was the 12th at his position. He's 132nd in the nation. You've got a couple running backs. We've got Marquise Henderson, who is our lowest ranked recruit. He was 51st in his position, not ranked on the national level, according to 24/7. And then you also have Gideon Davis from Lynchburg, who's 187th 4-star recruit. You've also got another 2 offensive tackles more with Rowan Byron. You have Easton Ware, who are great offensive tackles. Clemson is recruiting a lot out of Lynchburg, Virginia. It's tournament in. Clemson and Liberty might be fighting for some more recruits as this keeps going. It seems like they've got a little bit of recruiting going on there. They have 2 from Liberty Christian Academy with Gideon Davis and Easton Ware. But then you also have some weapons. You have Logan Booking at tight end, who's a 3-star recruit. Carlton Preston, 3-star wide receiver. He's a shorter guy, play more of a slot role. He's another Virginia guy. He's 5'10", 150. He's definitely going to put on a lot of weight. Hopefully he'll get a couple more inches, but he'll be more that slot. He's got some speed to him. I mean, he's quick. And then don't forget about a quarterback. We got Blake Hebert coming in, who I don't think is going to be the guy, but he's definitely a solid QB2 going to come in. Next year, Cato obviously still be QB1. CV will be 2. Then you'll have Pierman and Blake Hebert kind of competing for that net spot. But then as years go by and we see more recruits come in, I think Blake Hebert will probably stick around. I don't think he'll ever be the guy, but he'll be a great QB2. But in whole, this class is really, really stacked. This class of 25 for Clemson might be one of the best we've had. And I'm not saying best as in ratings. I'm not saying best as in stars of recruits. Obviously, we didn't have any 5 stars. Obviously, we didn't have too many 4 stars, right? We had 14 total recruits, with 6 of those being 3-star, and then 8 of those being 4-star or better, or 4 stars. So a little different there, but I am saying as far as impact to the field, as far as over the next 4 years in their time as Clemson, over these next 4 years, these classes, they're going to be solid. They're going to be really, really good. Like we said, according to 24/7, Clemson is number 11th in the nation. They moved up from 15th with that Bryce Davis commit. They've got 14 total or commits. I'm sorry, they have 10 4 stars. So it should be exciting. It's going to be really fun watching this class continue to grow and make the impact they're going to. We're going to take one more break. When we come back, we're keeping this conversation going. Now let's switch it up. According to Dabo Swinney, we've got a great offensive line. We're ready to rock 10 players rotating in an offensive line. Coach Matt Luke, our offensive line coach, is saying something a little different. We'll talk about that and more when we come right back. Welcome back to the Locked On Clemson podcast. So, one thing I love so many things about Dabo Swinney. He's the coach at Clemson. He should retire as the coach at Clemson later on, not right now. I'm not saying he should retire now. I'm saying he should stay at Clemson for a long time and then retire. But one thing that you can say about Dabo is that sometimes he's known to hype the team up a little bit more than necessary. I look at his comments about how great these teams are, especially the past couple years. A couple years ago, it was not our best year, and he was like, "Oh, this is the best team I've ever coached." No, thank you. Not the truth, but it's okay. I'll forgive you. Sometimes he can put on his filler hat. He can put on his fluffer hat and kind of make you feel better than it is. Our offensive line coach, our new coach, who's only coached one game, he coached in the bowl game last year against Kentucky. He is not that way. He's not that way at all. Last week, they had a coach interview and media got together, and they asked Matt Luke about how the offensive line is looking, and he was real with them. He said, look, obviously, Clemson is known as playing multiple players, and that's true. Looking throughout the years, especially in prime time, 2016 to 2020, they played more people on the field than almost anybody. A couple years, they played the most out of anybody. Just players rotating in. Offensive line, there was a couple years we saw 10 or plus offensive linemen regularly getting snaps, and it wasn't due to injury. It was just people rotating in. This year, we're not there yet. Dabo, he might say something different, but Coach Luke was like, look, obviously I want 10. Right now, we have 7 or 8 that we feel good with. We have 7 or 8 offensive tackles that we feel really good about, but that's not how it is right now. Clemson does have 4 returning starters on the offensive line. So when Coach Luke says there's 7 or 8, let's walk through who those 7 or 8 are, right? So he has 4 starters coming back on the offensive line. So that's exciting to have those 4. And then we have a couple more. We have a couple more coming in. So we've got the 4 coming back, but then we also have some others. We have some great freshmen coming up, a sophomore coming in. And Coach Luke mentioned that he'd rather have 15, obviously, right? Like, why wouldn't you want to have 15 offensive line rotating? Keep that healthy, keep them energized, keep them fresh. But that's not the case. But so center, we're losing Will Putnam as our center, who was a couple year starter there. Great center. He graduated. Right now, Coach Luke is saying Ryan Linthicum is taking his spot as the new starting center. But Harris Sewell, who is a younger guy, says Harris Sewell's making great progress. He's doing great things right now coming up. Linthicum is a redshirt junior. Sewell's a sophomore. He said Sewell's going to see a lot of time at guard play, see a lot of time at those inside offensive lineman roles. So he's exciting. So there's 2 more. You got Marcus Tate, like we said, great. Walker Parks, who's going to be there, being excellent. But you also have a couple of people on the bench that are going to see some pots. He said Colin Sadler, who's a redshirt sophomore, is going to see some playing time. He's playing well. He'll be a part of that rotation. Ian Reed, maybe not. He's a freshman. He's our backup right tackle. Probably not going to see a lot of playing time behind Blake Miller, who's going to be one of our leaders that we talked about last week. So Matt Luke was keeping it real. He said, look, obviously we want to get back to having those 10 players rotating. There's something about when you can run the ball behind fresh legs every single down. No matter if the drive is 5 plays or 12 plays. If you can rotate them in, you're keeping fresh legs the whole time. That would be nice. That would be really excellent. But Coach Luke is being realistic. Dabo has a little bit of fluffer. Seems like Coach Luke is going to keep it straight. He's going to be honest with us. And as of right now, he's saying, look, I want to, but we're not there yet. We've only got 7 or 8 guys that we can rotate in. So our offensive line, it's not something to be freaking out about, but it's also not something to be like, oh, yeah, our offensive line's going to lead us all the way. I don't know about that. I wouldn't say that. I would say that our offensive line is it's not one of our best that we've had. Definitely not. And it's not, I wouldn't put it as one of the best positions that we have on the offensive side. I think last year it was a problem. We had a hard time running the ball at times last year, hard time protecting the quarterback. Last year was definitely a problem. This year I think it'll be improved from last year. I don't think it'll be where we want it to be, if that makes sense. I think it's not going to be from here to here. No, I think it's more going to be a gradual increase over time. Now, next year, that class of 25 gives some of these younger guys more times, more reps, more playing time under leadership. Coach Luke having another year to build up this program. Again, I think we'll see that gradual increase. But as of right now, I think it's still working. It's going to be better than last year, but not the best. But with saying that, obviously that sounded pretty negative on our offensive line, right? When you look at Phil Steele, he went out and he ranked the top offensive lines in the nation. And how I'm talking, you probably expect Clemson to be like 20th. He put Clemson at 9th. He said, here was his words being it. 7 offensive linemen are back this season for Clemson, which includes 4 starters. Tigers should be in good shape with a lot of pressure on the team. Marcus Tate is back at guard, highlighting the group along with right guard Walker Parks. The interior offensive line should be Clemson's strength. So I'm talking all this negative, like not hyping up well. And he's like, nah, they're 9th best in the nation, which I don't know if I agree with. I don't know if we're that high. The other ACC schools on the list, Miami made it number 7. Florida State made it at number 5. And then Georgia Tech made it at number 10. Obviously, best in the nation is Georgia, Texas, and Oregon. But either way, Clemson's offensive line, we're seeing it go the right direction. We're seeing it get better. Coach Luke is definitely doing his job improving this offensive line. Now it's time to have a little patience. Now it's time to have a little faith and see if he can continue growing it, continue getting back to that spot, those prime days where we felt anything could happen behind fresh guys moving the ball consistently. So we're excited about that. That's where our offensive line stands at this moment. And with that, that is going to wrap up this episode of the Locked On Clemson podcast. Before we go, we do want to remind you, make sure you join our Insider Locked On Clemson Insider program. What that is it gives you an opportunity to have some one-on-one chats. If you want to send me a message, you want to chat with us, you want to see question and answers, we're going to release some mailbag episodes where you send in any questions you want. We'll answer them. We'll talk them through. We're also going to have some bonus episodes that are not released on YouTube or our audio formats. We're instead going to release them only to our Insider program people. And so what we're going to do is, if you want to be a part of that, you can subscribe right now to that by texting Clemson to 864-252-1907. 864-252-1907. Make sure you text Clemson to that so you can go ahead and get started right now with one of our first Insider, Locked On Clemson Insider. Join that program. It's going to be some awesome stuff. Trust me, you don't want to miss that. You get 14 days for free to try it out, and then it costs $4.99 a month. But make sure you join that. That'd be awesome. We would appreciate that. Also, let us know your thoughts on today's topics. You can do that by joining our Insider program or drop a comment. Let us know your thoughts. Hit us up on Twitter. Let us know your thoughts on today's topic. Let us know, where do you think the conference realignment's going? Think Clemson's going anywhere specific? Update on Class 25. Do you feel as good about this class as I do? Are you as positive on Coach Luke as I am? Let us know all that and more. We'd love to have a conversation with you. If you haven't, make sure you're subscribed to this podcast wherever you get your podcast at, and over on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. That way, every day, this can be your first listen here on the Locked On Clemson podcast. Make sure you check out one of the many other Locked On Podcast Network shows where it is your team every day. We can't wait to see you on tomorrow's episode, but until then, keep that Tiger pride alive and roaring, and as always, go Tigers.